There is a soup on menus all over the world that most people assume is a classic French haute cuisine dish. Refined, elegant, the product of some great Parisian kitchen. It is not. It was invented in New York in 1917 by a French chef who was trying to recreate something that his mother used to make on warm summer mornings in a small town in the Allier. She would take the leftover potato and leek soup from the night before and pour cold milk into it to cool it down for the children. That was it. That was the origin. Her mother's practical solution to a warm day in central France, transformed 30 years later into crème Vichyssoise glacée, one of the most celebrated cold soups in the history of gastronomy. And the man who made that leap is someone most people, well, they've never heard of. This is Fabulously Delicious, the French food podcast, and I'm your host, Andrew Pryor. No, I'm not the one that invented Vichyssoise, but I'm here to tell you the story of Louis Diat. By the end of this episode, you will know the full story of a boy who woke before school at 8 years of age to make soup, who trained in Paris and the London Ritz under César Ritz himself, and crossed the Atlantic at 25 with almost nothing, and within weeks was running the kitchen of the most glamorous hotel in America, who spent 41 years in one building cooking the kings, presidents, and the Prince of Wales, and who in retirement sat down and wrote his mother's recipes into cookbooks so that ordinary American home cooks could make them. This is one of the great untold stories in French food. Louis Félix Diat is one of those figures in French food history who changed the culinary landscape of the entire country, and not France. Born in the heart of central France in 1885, Diat spent 41 years as head chef of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in New York, cooking for kings, queens, presidents and prime ministers, and in the process, becoming one of the most celebrated and influential French chefs on American soil. He was a culinary ambassador before anybody had thought to use that phrase, a man who carried the traditions of provincial French cooking across the Atlantic and made them accessible to an entirely new audience. And along the way, almost by accident, he invented one of the most iconic soups in the world, a soup born from a childhood memory, a hot summer day in his mother's kitchen. Louis Félix Diat was born on the 5th of May in 1885 in Montmarault, a small commune in the department Allier in the Auvergne region of central France. His father, Louis Denis Diat, managed a shoe store in the town. His mother, Annette, responsible for everything that followed in Louis' extraordinary career, he later dedicated his cookbook, La Cuisine de ma mère, to her, describing her as the person who guided his early years, inspired his later ones, and whose memory remained a spur throughout his life. Montmarault sits in the Allier department, the heart of old Bourbon country, a rural architectural landscape of rolling hills, river valleys, and small market towns. The Allier is Bourbonnais country, the homeland of the ancient Duchy of Bourbon, and its food culture is deeply rooted in the peasant traditions of central France. Hearty, seasonal, uncomplicated food built around what the land produces: potatoes, leeks, chicken and dairy. Not far away lies Vichy, the famous spa town whose mineral springs and culinary reputation would later give Diat's most famous creation its name. The proximity to Vichy was not coincidental. It was, in a sense, the geographical detail that would eventually make culinary history. The childhood that shaped Louis was one of watching, absorbing and cooking from an extraordinary early age. At 5 years old, he learned to cook. At 8, he was waking up before school to make soup. He observed his mother and grandmother in the kitchen with the intensity of somebody who understood instinctively that this was where his future lay. His mother taught him how to make tarts. His grandmother showed him how to broil chicken over charcoal. And on warmer summer mornings, the detail that would decades later inspire one of the great soups of the 20th century, his mother would cool leftover potato and leek soup by pouring cold milk into it, serving it to the children as a refreshing summer snack. He never forgot that. In the summer, when he and his siblings wanted something cold, this was what appeared. A simple, practical country solution to a warm day. He filed it away somewhere in his memory, and it stayed there for 30 years. By 13, Diat had resolved to become a chef. By 14, he had entered into an apprenticeship at a patisserie in Moulins, the nearest significant town, and the historical capital of Allier department. It was a classical French beginning, learning the fundamentals of pastry, discipline and precision from the ground up. At 18, he moved to Paris, where he undertook tours of duty at two of the city's most distinguished hotels, the Hôtel Le Bristol and the Hôtel de Rune. Paris in the early 1900s was at the height of its gastronomic confidence, and working in its great hotels meant working alongside some of the finest chefs in the world. In 1903, at just 18 years old, Diat was appointed chef potager, soup chef, at the Hotel Ritz of Paris. It was at the Ritz that his real education began. In 1906, at 21, he transferred to the Ritz Hotel in London, where he held the same position and also assisted the main sauce chef. At both the Paris and London Ritz, Diat was coached directly by the founder himself, César Ritz. To be trained by César was to receive a culinary education at the very pinnacle of what the hospitality world could offer. It was exacting, demanding, and transformative, and it prepared Diat for what was coming next. Paris, in the early 1900s, was at the absolute height of its gastronomic confidence, and you can still feel that today in the city, if you know, of course, where to look. Which brings me to something I want to mention. If Paris is on your horizon this year, or even just on your dream list, I have something that might help. My book, Paris, A Fabulous Food Guide to the World's Most Delicious City, has just been newly updated, and this edition is one that I'm most proud of. Over 100 additional pages on the history of food in Paris, because understanding why the city eats the way it does is just as fascinating as knowing where to go. And if this episode has taught you anything, it's that the history of French food is full of extraordinary stories, hiding in, well, just plain sight. All my favourite boulangeries, patisseries, fromageries, wine bars, markets, hidden gems are all in there. Plus, there's new sections for vegan and vegetarian dining, beautiful food with a view spots, and a dedicated section on Emily in Paris locations, so that you can go and sit exactly where Emily sat. No judgment from me whatsoever, because I love Emily in Paris. Ordered directly from our website at andrewpryorfabulously.com, but you can also get it on Amazon or ask your local independent bookshop to order it in. Supporting local bookshops is always a fabulous idea. Right, now back to Louis Diat and his journey from Paris to New York. Louis Diat married a woman named Suzanne, and together they had one daughter, Suzette. The family lived in New Rochelle in New York between 1916 and 1929, before moving to a small apartment on Manhattan Central Park West, where they stayed until January 1950. After that, they moved to Hartsdale in Westchester County, where Diat spent the rest of his life. Suzette Diat later married George L. Laurence and had 2 children of her own. In an interview, she described her father as a gentle, humble man, simple in his tastes, a man who enjoyed good cooking that did not have to be fancy, as long as it was prepared well without too much seasoning and not too rich. She considered him a patient instructor who would answer any question about cooking and kept no secrets from those who genuinely wanted to learn. On the 8th of October in 1910, at 25 years old, Louis Diat arrived in New York, and within weeks he was appointed head chef of the newly opened Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Manhattan, a position he would hold for the next 41 years. Auguste Escoffier himself oversaw the inauguration of the restaurant. The first week of November 1910, Diat applied to become a citizen of the United States, a decision that spoke to both his ambition and his genuine affection for this adopted country. He served as chef de cuisine at the Ritz-Carlton, the celebrated roof garden restaurant. And during these 4 decades there, he cooked for King Edward VIII as the Prince of Wales, for queens, prime ministers, ambassadors, presidents, Calvin Coolidge and Franklin D. Roosevelt, Sarah Roosevelt, and the Vanderbilts. And on one memorable occasion, the exclusive wine club, the Confrères de Chevalier de Testin, the Knights of the Wine Cup, he worked 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and spent 7 or 8 hours at the hotel on his day off. He supervised 150 chefs, the kitchen mediator and the first aid expert in cases of injury, a man who forbade the use of substitutes in food and flatly rejected the proposition of producing a canned version of his most famous soup. In 1917, seeking to invent what he described as some new and startling cold soup for the summer menu, he remembered his mother's kitchen. He remembered the warm mornings. He remembered the cold milk poured into leftover potato and leek soup. And he began to experiment. And what emerged was a combination of leeks, onions, potatoes, butter, milk, cream, and seasonings, pureed into a silky smoothness and served ice cold. He named it crème Vichyssoise glacée, chilled cream of Vichy, after the spa town near his birthplace, famous for its mineral springs and its exceptional food. The steel magnate Charles M. Schwab was the first person to taste it and immediately requested another serving. It was, by all accounts, an instant success. It was served early summer at the Ritz-Carlton for the next several years, and by 1923, so many people were requesting it year-round that Diat placed it permanently on the menu. Sarah Roosevelt, mother of the President Franklin D. Roosevelt, once called Diat at 5 p.m. and asked to be sent 8 portions to her house. He was on an occasion so desperate for leeks that the hotel's produce supplier had to find a farmer on Long Island willing to cultivate a small crop specifically just for the Ritz-Carlton kitchen. In 1938, Diat was awarded the Chevalier de Mérite Agricole, a distinguished French honour, for having done so much to bring an important element of culture and civilization to the United States. The president of the Campbell Soup Company, Arthur Durance, spent 6 months staying at the Ritz, specifically just to learn Diat's soup-making techniques. In 1947, Diat became the in-house chef of Gourmet magazine, contributing recipes and writing that reached a vast American readership. He taught cooking classes in the hotel kitchens throughout his tenure, and some of his students went on to become head chefs at hotels across New York, Washington, D.C. and Colorado. His 2 brothers also distinguished themselves in the culinary world. Jules Diat was a teacher, and his son Louis' nephew served as chef sorcier at the 1939 New York World's Fair before being killed by the Germans during the Second World War as a member of the French resistance. His younger brother Lucien, 17 years his junior, went on to become the renowned executive chef at the Plaza Athénée in Paris, and crucially, the teacher of Jacques Pepin. The Diat family quietly shaped French cuisine on both sides of the Atlantic across several generations. The milestones accumulate quickly when you lay them out. In 1903, he's appointed the chef protégé at the Ritz Paris at 18. 1906, transferred to the Ritz London. 1910, arrived in New York and appointed head chef of the Ritz-Carlton within weeks. 1917, invented crème Vichyssoise glacée. 1923, Vichyssoise is placed on the menu all year round. 1938, awarded the Chevalier de Mérite Agricole. 1941, published Cooking à la Ritz, his first cookbook. And in 1946, published Louis Diat's French cookbook for Americans. 1947, he became an in-house chef for Gourmet magazine. And in 1951, he prepared the farewell luncheon for the kitchen staff on the day the Ritz-Carlton closed for demolition. And in retirement, a series of cookbooks that continued to bring the traditions of his mother's Bourbonnais kitchen to American readers, including Sauces, French and Famous in 1951, Gourmet's Basic French Cookbook, published posthumously in 1961. On the 2nd of May 1951, the Ritz-Carlton Hotel closed for demolition. Diat prepared a farewell luncheon, as I mentioned, for the kitchen personnel. And then he retired to his home in Hartsdale, Westchester County, where he spent his remaining years writing cookbooks. Before the demolition, he told a journalist, "I don't want to be in New York when they break this place up." It is a sentence that says everything about his 41-year relationship with that building and everything that happened inside it. Louis Diat died on the 29th of August in 1957 at New York Hospital. He was 72 years old. He was buried in New York. The tributes that followed his death were consistent in what they emphasised. Not the grandeur of the Ritz, not the famous guests, but the quality of the man himself. The New York Times headline on the day of his death called him an artist of the menu and noted that he had raised the leek potato to greatness. Jane Nickerson of the New York Times described him as a tall, slim, handsome man with thick grey hair and wide, bushy eyebrows. A master in the kitchen who was always willing to stop cooking long enough to talk about it in an interpretive and fascinating manner. His collaborator, Helen Ridley, recalled that Louis always thought the United States had a magnificent supply of really fine foods, that there was no place in Europe that could rival it in the variety and quality of the available ingredients. The chef who took his mother's soup and turned it into a legend and never forgot where it came from. Et voila! That's the end of today's episode of Fabulously Delicious. If this episode made you want to make a bowl of Vichyssoise, call your mother, or simply sit quietly for a moment and think about how the most extraordinary things can come from the most ordinary memories. Parfait. That's exactly the right response to Louis Diat. If you enjoyed it, the best things that you can do are leave a review and a rating on whatever platform that you're listening to right now. It takes just 30 seconds and it makes an enormous difference to how many people find the podcast. So merci beaucoup. You can find me on Instagram at Andrew Pryor Fabulously for French food history, fun facts, and behind-the-scenes life in rural France. And if you'd rather watch than listen, full video episodes are on YouTube. The same stories, the same food, just with my face attached. And I have a Substack, free to subscribe or paid if you'd like to support the show and get a little more of everything. The link is in the show notes for this episode, or you can go to andrewpryorfabulously.com for more info. Cover the croissants and stay because you're fabulous. And if this episode resonated with you, go and find my story on Alexis Soyer, another Frenchman who crossed the channel and changed the food culture of an entire country. And my Fabulous French Chef series, where more extraordinary stories like Louis Diat are waiting for you. Just search Fabulously Delicious wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, eat well, stay curious, and whatever you do, do it fabulously. Merci beaucoup, bon app, et à très bientôt.